Good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're watching this. This is Winfred Burns, your Global Draft Network CEO. And I just want to take a few moments just to talk about communication. So Marcus Buckingham has a statement that he makes that at least I heard him make. I'm not sure if he originated or not, but he said that as a leader, as a leader or a person who is who is passionate about something and trying to push something, you should know or realize that the moment you are tired of talking about whatever it is you are passionate about or communicating about, that's the moment people just begin to listen. I'm going to say that again. That the moment that you are tired of talking about something is the moment that people just begin to listen. And I think that for me, as in every area of my life, was a huge revelation. Because oftentimes when you are trying to communicate something, when you are trying to get your organization to do something, when you're trying to get your friends, your family, your significant other, anybody, when you're trying to, even in marketing, when you're trying to get something across, oftentimes we expect people to catch it as fast as we caught it, when in reality, they're not in the same, I'll use the word cycle of thoughts or thinking about it as we were. So let me give you an example. So we've spent the last, hey Tasha, how you doing? What's up, Jay? Hey Magnolia. We started, and Tasha can tell you, talking about the Level Up Conference, I want to say in June of 2018. And even before June of 2018, myself, Q, Kels, and other people were talking about doing a conference. So fast forwarded to September when I announced the conference and started talking about the conference publicly. I have been literally talking, thinking, working through this conference for almost over a year. And so in my mind, it's taken up a lot of space. I've heard it a lot. I've talked about it a lot. I've thought about it a lot for an entire year. And so for me, for September, to advertise or talk to you about it for September, October, November, you've only heard about it for 3 months. And so my expectation that you would have the same thoughts, ideas, understanding in 3 months of hearing about it or talking about it as I've had for a year, as I've been processing it for a year, would be unfair, because I'm a whole year ahead of you in the process of thinking, talking, changing, organizing, etc., etc. And that is something similar that we do in every area of our life. If you think about it, we have thoughts about things that we like to see in our relationships. We have things we like to see in our organizations that because we're passionate about it and want to see change happen, we've been thinking, or we've been studying, or we have insight about it that others do not have, because it is just being introduced to them, or it's a paradigm shift that we're asking them to make. And so sometimes we have to, in our communication, we have to slow down, we have to think about it, we have to give them time to get to the space that we are in our understanding, in our logic, in our processing, because communication is both about how we articulate as well as how the other person receives. And a lot of times, how we articulate and how the person receives are based on the foundation of the relationship that the person has with us and the relationship that a person has with the topic. And so we have to give ourselves space and time to walk through, to talk through, to communicate whatever it is that we are trying to change and adjust. And so I think we've got to think through that, because ultimately we love to talk about communication and how communication needs to be better, but we often don't understand or don't think about the fact that, again, that most of us, number one, are communicating from two different times. So again, our introduction to a topic, thought, idea, or change is different, and our relationship to the topic and to the person also has to do with how we often receive whatever the communication is. So let's give you another example. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody and you're trying to communicate to them something that makes you sad, but you notice that you have triggered an angry emotion, or even something glad. It's something that makes you glad, but you say something and it triggers a negative or angry emotion in them. Well, it's not necessarily that you said something bad, because in your mind, your intention was good. But what you said triggered something in them where they have a negative relationship, and oftentimes and they respond, and we respond, from our understanding or our relationship with whatever you said or whatever was said. And so that makes it difficult. And that's where, again, we have to go back to giving people the time, giving people the space, being understanding for people, understanding a place of understanding where people can, as we understand, okay, this is a trigger for you. Now I have to address this differently, or now we need to talk through why this triggers you that way, because I didn't. I was talking to a friend who was telling me a story about something that the person that they're in a relationship with did. And when they told me, I thought, oh, okay, that was fine. But their response to it was very negative to what this person did, because their assumption was, in past relationships, this equaled this. And for me, because of my relationship with what had been done, that did not equal that. And so I made the statement, I said, why not look at this from this perspective, because this could potentially be what's happening, because there hasn't been enough communication to explain what was going on. And I'm trying not to tell y'all the situation, because I don't want to put people's name out there. But after this person backed up and there was more communication about the situation, it was, oh, I did see this wrong. I did see this incorrectly. And I realize now that I have to deal with, again, that word trigger, this trigger, and why this triggered me, and to automatically think this way in that. I hope that makes sense for everybody. But again, we have to remember that communication, again, is a very complex thing. And especially for us, for me, for me as a man, and probably in most men, we don't necessarily identify with some of the range of emotions that other people do. I don't. I'm gonna say I don't, as a man, often identify with certain emotions very well, because I'm real good at mad, I'm real good at happy, and most of the time I'm cool. I'm good. And so if it doesn't fit into my understanding of what those three emotions are, I got nothing. And so me learning how to understand that there's a wider range of emotions, what those emotions mean, how they feel, etc., and how my communication comes off, because my typical thing is one of those three. I have to improve and get better and see things from the perspective of the person who's receiving. People who deal with me will tell you I'm pretty interesting when it comes to communication, when it gets into emotions, because I can cool, mad, happy. That's it. So again, it's complicated, is my point. And I think we have to, again, work together to understand each other to dig, to give people the time, the space, walk with them, and as we said it, as Cicely said in Passion Talk on Tuesday's show, is we've got to be willing to not only ask the hard questions but give the honest answers to the hard questions, because then that's when we can really find out if our relationships have a foundation, develop true understanding and a true foundation for relationships. And again, this is all relationships. This is from business to friendships to marriage, across the board. So we got to establish that foundation so we all know where we are and we can all grow together. And some of our miscommunication and misunderstandings would not end up in either us developing a new dysfunction, our hearts being broken like they are, to relationships ending. Because y'all ever have those situations where at the end of a relationship, you really calm down, step back and go, that wasn't really even that serious. Like we didn't even have to argue. We didn't have to argue over that, because that was not, it didn't take all of that. Because again, a lot of times we just, like I said, we just get into it and go and never stop to say, okay, listen, where are you? How did you receive this? How did you take how I communicated what I just said? Even asking something, doing something as basic as saying something. And one of my things is, I'll repeat what you said. What I just heard you say was, and I'll say that. And a lot of times they're like, no, that's not what I said. Okay, help me again. Say that. Could you please say that again? Because I don't know what I missed, or I think this is what I heard. And then that person can, lovingly tell you what they're attempting to say. And the same thing when a person responds. Okay, so from your response, what I heard you say is, and repeat it back. And that way, that gives you an opportunity to make sure that what you heard was what was intended to be said, and flip that, what was said was received in the way that it needed to be heard. Because a good communicator does not just communicate from the perspective of themselves. They communicate from in a way that they know their audience can receive it. Yesterday, I was asked the question, how come men don't go to church? And that was the answer to the question. That was my response to the question. Why don't men go to church? Because most communication in church, by the way, is for women. Different posts, we won't go there. But that's the reality. The reality is that we've got to put ourselves in positions, again, where we, as communicators, understand, number one, like my introduction was that we got to understand that when we communicate, when we get tired of our message, that is when people begin to hear us, number one. And then number two, again, remember that the foundation or the basis of our communication is the relationship to what is being communicated, and it is our relationship to what is being communicated. So if we have a bad relationship with a subject, we can be triggered easily. If we have a good relationship with that subject, then we'll handle that communication a little better, because in our mind, that's not something we need to be defensive about. Same thing with the person. If a person we feel we have a bad experience with, we become defensive. If it's a person we've had good experiences with, enough good experiences with, then we're not defensive and we're a little more open. So I hope that helps. Again, I just wanted to drop that on you this morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're watching that. If you have not hit the share button, hit the share button. And I hope y'all have a good rest of your day. Today is Thursday. So again, this is Level Up Thursday. So if you guys have any comments, questions, put them in the comment section. If you have any questions for me, you need to inbox me, please do it, or email me. That's fine. WinfredBurnsII@gmail.com. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Know that I love you. Know that I appreciate you. Know that the only thing I want for you is to see your life leveled up in a way that even you ever thought it could be. I'll talk to you later. Bye.